I recently did a post on Ryan Davis, and then I did one on Clifton Powell and Mike Epps. And one thing I've seen on all three of these interviews is some men will say, but he wasn't wrong though. He told his truth. Well, the fact that it was his truth means it's true for him. It doesn't mean that he's not wrong. There are a lot of things that people can say they've done, they believe, they feel, they think. That doesn't make those things right. You know, everyone has their pet grievances, their things that they think are despicable or horrible or crazy or, unforgivable. So if someone were to get on an interview and pick one of your pet peeves and say, oh my gosh, I was a thief for 50 years of my life, and nobody told me that I shouldn't be stealing from people because I was always told, hey, you do whatever it takes to survive. Just because that is their truth doesn't mean that being a thief isn't wrong, that being a thief isn't illegal, that being a thief isn't something that in some certain situations could literally cost you your life. That's how wrong it is to some people. They will literally defend their property, their possessions, with lethal force. So stating your truth is not a protection of anything, because your truth doesn't have to be right. And that is not a defense. It's also not a defense not to know. I remember I live in Texas, and one of the things that you hear about after people have had floods in their homes, that people will make decisions sometimes. Like, let's say, for example, your home was flooded, but you assume that it's had enough time to dry out. The walls have had enough time to dry out. So you decide to plug something into a socket when everything, before was unplugged. There is a possibility that when you plug something in, you could be injured. All right, because, of the water still left in the walls. So plugging that item in could cause a fatal shock or even a fire. And nobody is going to say, oh, well, that was their truth, that they thought that it was okay. Because nature doesn't care what you think is true. The laws of cause and effect are going to go into force. And hopefully you survive. So thinking something, believing something, and then saying or acting on that thing doesn't mean that you are protected. Doesn't mean that you are right. It doesn't. And I shouldn't have to explain this to anybody. No one should have to explain to another adult that someone saying something doesn't mean that they're right, or even that they should be supported. There are lots of things that people say that they do need to be corrected on. If you say something racist, something sexist, yeah, you need to be corrected. Somebody needs to stand up to you and say, hey, that's not appropriate. That's not what we're going to say. That's not how we're going to act. That's not what we're going to do. So the same thing goes with taking advantage of people and then talking about it later. That is not right. If you were married and you tell somebody, hey, I'm 69 years old and I just learned how to love, that means that the woman that you were married to for decades has put up with you mistreating her, you giving her less than she probably was giving you lying to her in a sense, because I'm sure that in most cases you promised to love, honor, cherish, obey, all those kind of things, and you didn't do those things. So that there's damage there. And you just stating this as if, hey, here's my truth. That's not taking accountability. And that's actually, in a sense, being entitled because all of us can look at situations and we can see that things aren't working. We can see that, this person treats me this way and in return, I treat them that way. If we're actually reflective, if we're actually thinking, if we're actually in tune, if we actually even care or are concerned about our partner, we should notice certain things. But if we don't, that doesn't excuse us from what we did wrong. It's not an excuse that I didn't know. It's not an excuse that I didn't care. I wasn't mature enough. None of those are excuses. They may be your truth, but they're still not excuses. So, we have to get past this, the person's telling their truth and that makes it okay. No, it doesn't make anything okay. It's good that they are, admitting things now, but that's just the first step. And I wrote about that not too long ago. Accountability is not admitting that you were wrong. That's just the first step. Accountability is actually making things right, taking full responsibility by changing and making things right. So please check out my podcast, Zenergy, Zenurgy. Please check out my books on Amazon. This is Zenashe, Zenase. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share. And I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic. May you walk in